Story time about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. A little background information: I was 18 and in 12th grade. I had always had trouble in school, especially history class. And I had always had tutors and everything like that. And eventually I just got tired of trying to get my grade up because I realized that it was never going to happen. So my teacher was 27 years old. We're going to call him Mike. And Mike had a girlfriend. He had been staying after school helping me like every single day, from like 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Well, the one day I had this outfit on that maybe wasn't that appropriate, and I was being super flirty with him the whole time. To be honest, I just didn't want to put in the effort to get up my grades. And then 10 minutes later, he started getting handsy, and I told him that if he wanted to do anything, he had to get my grade up for me. So he did just that. Well, for the next couple of months, I would go over to his house to study. So like I said, I got tired of putting effort in to get my grade up, so I let him hit, and then I was going over his house after school. Well, later on at the end of the year, I find out that I'm pregnant. And because I was 18, I really didn't have to care about what my parents thought. So I told him, and surprisingly, this man was on board with it. He was like, "Oh my God, like, let's do this. I'm so happy." And I was like, what the fuck? Well, his ex-girlfriend found out, so she went and told the school. He got fired. And 3 years later, we're still together raising our child.
My 25 female father married my stepsister's 23 female mother when I was 4 and she was 3. We've lived together for most of our lives and are a family. She and I were extremely close. She developed cancer when she was 14 and was sick for about 2 years. She's since made a full recovery. During that time, my parents became understandably overprotective. They also asked a lot of me. I quit my extracurriculars so I could get a job. The money went towards her medical bills, and so I could drive her to appointments. I didn't go to dances, and any fun activities I did needed to include her. I did almost all of this willingly, the exception being having to quit my high school volleyball team. I did throw a bit of a tantrum about that, but was swiftly punished. And I think having one emotional breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. Anyhow, I go to college and meet my ex, we'll call him Ben, when I'm a junior. We fall in love, blah blah blah. He and I move in together when we graduate, so we've been living together for about 3 years. We were serious, until July when I walked into my bedroom and saw him doing it with my sister. I broke it off, tears were shed, he moved out, etc. My sister apologized at first, but then backed off. I thought she was giving me space, but last week she called and asked if we could meet up. She told me that she and Ben were in love and were just telling me as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Distraught, I left her in the restaurant by herself and did not pay my portion of the bill. She later Venmo'd me asking for the money. She told my parents, who then called me to their house, telling me how disappointed in me they are for not supporting my sister's relationship with Ben. They brought up the fact that she had cancer as a teenager, she never learned proper social etiquette, and has a hard time meeting people. I don't buy this, in part because I've seen her socialize just fine, and since we spent a good chunk of the time she was sick together, that would also mean that I should have bad social skills as well, by that logic. They then told me that if I don't accept my sister and Ben's relationship, they may have to go no contact with me. I reminded them that I'm also their daughter and they should understand my point of view, but they are adamant that this is about me being jealous of her. I'm not jealous of her. I'm not upset that Ben picked her over me. I'm sad about the end of the relationship and do feel betrayed, but Lord knows that I don't want to be with a cheater. What I'm upset about is the fact that my sister chose Ben over me. That she slept with Ben knowing he and I were in a long-term, committed relationship, and continues to be with him knowing how much it hurts me. Now no one in my immediate family is talking to me, and I'm getting messages from aunts and uncles and cousins telling me that I'm an a-hole and a selfish witch.
Am I the butthole for snapping when I found out that a guy saw my girlfriend naked? I'm a 25-year-old guy, and my 23-year-old girlfriend, Lydia, lives with a roommate who has a boyfriend, Jeff. We gathered at their place last Friday for pizza. After a while, Jeff asked Lydia if she's still scared of being alone the nights when my roommate goes over to his place and when I can't come over. Lydia has always had trouble with being alone at night, and most nights I stay on FaceTime with her until she falls asleep so she feels safer. The roommate laughed and said that if she hears a noise in the bathroom, at least it'll be a ghost and not her locked in passed out. Lydia quickly said to me that she would explain later. When we got to Lydia's room, I asked her to explain, and she told me that this afternoon she wasn't feeling well, and she ended up fainting in the shower. So Jeff had to break down the door so her roommate could get in and help her. She said that she already felt better, and she didn't want to tell me because I was going to be worried about nothing. I said it wasn't nothing if she'd fainted, and that I should be aware of these things to help her. She said that now it would just be a funny story of how Jeff broke the door and her roommate had to cover her with a towel so they could come to the rescue of her naked body. That moment, I saw red. I asked if Jeff had seen her naked, and she said that she couldn't be sure since she was unconscious. But the roommate said that Jeff stood outside of the bathroom until she was fully covered. I asked if Lydia thought that it was fair for me to not know that another guy had seen her naked, and she said that he didn't actually see her naked, and that it shouldn't matter since he was only helping. I shouted that she just said that she was unconscious, so she couldn't know if he saw her or not. She told me to be quiet or they would hear me, and I shouted that I didn't care, that a man just saw my girlfriend's body and I had a right to be mad. Jeff and his girlfriend came in and they explained that he never saw anything. He just broke the lock and waited outside until the roommate gave him an all clear. I said that I didn't believe him, and the roommate jumped to his defense, saying that she was right there making sure the situation wasn't embarrassing so they could take proper care of Lydia without her feeling weird. I said that if she was a cuckold, I wouldn't be. What? Jeff then shouted at me, saying that I should respect his girlfriend as well as my girlfriend, who had spent a whole day saying that she was fine, but still looked a bit pale. He said that he only did it because he cared about Lydia and that I was a butthole who didn't deserve any type of help. Hearing him say that he cared about her was it for me. I left without so much as looking at Lydia as she begged me not to go. Over the weekend, Lydia had to be admitted to a hospital because she wasn't feeling well again, and Jeff and the roommate prohibited me from seeing her, saying that I didn't deserve her. Obviously, the whole hospital thing sucks, and I wish that I was there for her, but still, I think that I was right. At this point, I'm not mad at Lydia anymore, just at Jeff.
I, 36 female, have dated Nick, 37 male, for 3 years. I wasn't perfect, but my perception is that we have had an overall positive relationship. Until a year ago when I caught him cheating. I'm financially independent and have been a careful planner in terms of my finances. I'll be completely debt-free on January 2022. I had a hard time forgiving him, but he did everything to regain my trust and we had a somewhat smooth run for about 8 months. He asked me to help him start a business, which I did in part. I wrote the plan according to his idea, coached him getting through his permits and all other steps. He didn't follow through. First it was that he didn't have time, then it was that he was anxious because getting it off the ground wouldn't be immediate. So in other words, I created a business for him where I would be his main client. This sounded like a happy medium since he wanted me to appoint him as my partner and that's unthinkable. For background, I went to college and while being an average student, I did work hard later on when I found my first job to make up for not having an excellent academic record. I earned certificates and invested in my education however I could to improve my chances. It paid off. I've been self-employed since I was 28. When I met Nick, he told me he owned a small agency but was about to get a government job since the economy wasn't helping. I was perfectly okay with that. Things were going well, until I found out that he was seeing his ex. This was a huge blow for me because I didn't know what I did for him to do this. I did everything in my power to be supportive and to be a reliable partner. I did my best to look nice for him, and I was contributing to the household. I paid half of everything, and it was my place. We had a long crisis until I chose to forgive and let go. During this new honeymoon phase, he got a better job, treated me with love, and was very attentive to my feelings. I began to see red flags early this past October. He suddenly wanted me to be hands-off from his startup, didn't want to go out, and lost interest in being intimate. He became grouchy and rude. It was all about him and his needs. He'd lost his job last year due to COVID. We moved to a house I leased in January. I love the house, but it created friction between us. I'm an animal lover. My landlord doesn't interfere with my pet-related activities as long as I can keep the place clean. I built a catio for my 10+ cats that I've rescued. It's an indoor space with controlled temperature and all their supplies are available to them 24/7. This was my dream. I wanted to help those kitties stay off the street since I've been feeding them for years. Also, they have all their shots. One of them had CKD but bounced back. Nick knew this from the start. The house is clean, no pet smells thanks to the automatic cat litter boxes. He resented the cats because he wanted his family to move in. The answer was no. We never discussed this. He went as far as to ask me to get rid of the cats and suggested I put them up for adoption. The cats were not his expense. He hasn't worked a steady job in months while I've helped him fund his business meetings because I didn't want to kill his dream. He does contribute, but significantly less. I cannot live with his family. They are choosing beggars and moochers. The pattern is that his siblings and himself break off their relationships as soon as babies are born, but I realized this too late. Nick says his ex went crazy after she gave birth. His brother tricked his ex into moving with her parents while he found a home for them and the baby. He never found a house, but knocked her up a second time, so her parents banned him from stepping into their home. The youngest brother hightailed his wife when she had her second baby. All his siblings and his mom lived together. His reason for wanting them to move in was that we had 3 spare bedrooms plus a very large family room, and that it would be great if they saved on rent. So, I guess there was no intention to contribute. Long story short, I got really sick by the end of October. I never got so much as a kind gesture from him. I cried due to body aches and he just stayed away. His excuse is that I could be contagious, it wasn't COVID. He never asked me if he could get me anything to eat and hardly ever came to check on me. I spent a lonely Thanksgiving while still recovering because he left to be with his family. My loved ones aren't near because I left everything for him. At some point, we talked about marriage. I recently found out he is back with his side chick. I was gonna hire a PI, but it's not worth it. I already know what I need to know. I got a hold of his phone and found about 3 weeks worth of texts. They are definitely hooking up. I've held this inside of me because at first, I was in too much pain to confront him. I don't wish it on anybody. We are hardly on speaking terms and he hasn't even bothered to ask me what's wrong. I didn't find anything on his girlfriend's social media, Laura. I did find more than I needed to know from her mother's profile. He has been active in their lives since at least last summer and has been lying to me. This hits close to home. While he's been lying to me about going to job interviews without any luck, I've been partially financing his lifestyle. He has a so-called business trip to the British Virgin Islands. I no longer think there's business involved. Or, he may be combining business with something else. I don't know if this is a fake business conference or what, and I don't want to know. I did see Laura's mother's social media, and she vaguely mentions a trip abroad. I'm leaving him, first because of the pain he's causing me, and second because he's a liar. I need advice to see if there's anything I'm leaving out from my to-do list, as I'll be disconnecting from him. I'm not granting him the luxury of knowing that I'm pulling the rug in advance. I already talked to the landlord, as I'll be leaving the house slightly earlier. I'll be using next trip to uproot myself. I already hired a company that specializes in pet transport since I'm concerned about flying pets in cargo. I have all their health certificates in order, so they'll be coming to pick my kittens up by 9 AM. Nick's flight leaves much earlier, so he needs to be out by 6 AM. I'm moving closer to my family, and I've already made arrangements to board my pets until a new catio is built for them. My sister will take care of it, and I'll be living on my own property. I've arranged for the movers to come the same day in the afternoon. That way I'll have time to pack and separate my stuff from his. I'll have all his personal items shipped to his mother's house because I don't want any personal interaction. All business efforts have been cancelled. I've made sure he gets no access to my clients and deleted the business plan, etc. I need to change all my passwords and all the pins on all my cards and the visa I've allowed him to use for emergencies because he might be able to draw from it. I also need to drain the bank account I let him use for business expenses and close it. I think it's best if I do it while he's flying to keep him from using them. I don't know if I'm leaving anything out. I will leave immediately to avoid any surprises, his family coming to confront me, etc. He can now move in with his girlfriend if he wants. I think she lives with her parents, but he will no longer be my problem. Any suggestions? I'd hate to leave any loose ends.
Very cute guy, 30, who works at City Recycling Center, used address from Amazon box to return my grandmother's ring. I want to ask him to coffee. Sister says this is how, quote, dumb girls disappear. There's a lot of backstory here, but I have a ring that was my grandmother's engagement ring from her high school sweetheart who was killed in Korea before they got married. She says I was the only person she ever told the story to out of respect for my grandpa, but she still treasured the ring and the boyfriend's memory, and she wanted me to have it. About a month ago, I just lost the ring. As in, it was on my bathroom counter 1 minute, and the next, it was gone. I tore my house apart with no sign and was super depressed and figured it must have gone down the sink or I vacuumed it or something. Well, this past weekend, I get a knock on my door, which literally never happens anymore. The guy was very nervous and very nice and really cute too. And he asked if I was Alyssa X. And I said, yes. He said he really didn't know how appropriate this was, but he was a supervising civil engineer at our city recycling center. And about a month ago, one of the sorters found a ring in an Amazon box and gave him the box and the ring. He said he tried to contact me via phone and social media for a couple of weeks. I deleted all of it due to a bad breakup. Thought about mailing the ring, but didn't want it to get lost. So after thinking on it for a week, he decided to hand deliver it to the address on the box and hope it worked. I immediately busted into tears when I saw the ring and I only got his first name. I think I told him thank you, and I think he said that it made him very happy. His plan worked, and he would let me have my moment and left. I cried for a good hour, just staring at the ring, amazed at how lucky I was. I started to feel bad. I blew the guy off, so I did some social media sleuthing and found his Instagram. I created a new account and sent him a message thanking him. He has not responded, so I don't think he's very active. I found out where he works, and I want to surprise him and ask him to dinner or coffee or drinks as a way of saying thank you. Yes, in my heart I'm thinking this is how great romance stories start, but my brain really is thankful he went through all the trouble. When I told my sister about my plan, she absolutely said I was being an idiot. She said it was nice the guy returned the ring, but his behavior is so sus. She said I have no idea who this guy is. All we know is that he, quote, stalked my address from an Amazon box, which is probably massively against the rules of his job. She says instead of being a great romance, it's how dumb girls end up dead in a ditch. What do you guys think about this?
When I say this woman literally tried to steal my suitcase at the airport, like we had to get airport security on her. So yesterday at 4:30 in the morning, I had to go to the airport because we were flying to Vegas, me and my boyfriend. And this is me and my boyfriend's first time ever traveling like alone together. Like no parents, no help. It was a little nerve-wracking. So we got to the airport way earlier than we had to. We got to the airport at 5 a.m. and our flight wasn't till 10. But our plan was to just like get there super early, sit down, have food, get Starbucks, and just like not be stressed. Well, we walk into the airport and we go to like drop our bags. If you've never been to an airport, that's basically where you give like the people your suitcase so that they can put it on the plane. So I go to do that and they're like, oh, we're so sorry, but it's too early for you to put your suitcase in the drop bag area. And I was like, what? I didn't even know that was a thing because I've gone to the airport a lot, gotten there really early before, and they've never told me that I couldn't put my suitcase in the area. I'm like, okay, fine. So we had to sit in like this couch area in the front of the airport, and we had our suitcases, backpacks, like all of our luggage. So we're sitting there on this couch thing, and once again, it's really early. We had gotten no sleep, so we start to fall asleep. I regret this so much. So I start to close my eyes. They were like squinted so I could still see a little bit. In the back of my mind, I'm like, stay awake, somebody's gonna steal your suitcase, which did happen. So I'm sitting there with my eyes squinted when all of a sudden I see a lady come up and grab my suitcase. I open my eyes and I like tap my boyfriend on the shoulder because I didn't know what to do. Like I'm not good at confronting people. And my boyfriend kind of just looks at me and looks at her, and the lady just starts walking off with my suitcase. So I'm like, what? So I told my boyfriend, I'm like, go up there and stop her. He's like, okay. So he goes up to her, he stops her, and he's like, that's my suitcase. And she's like, no, it's not. We didn't really understand what she was saying because I don't think she spoke English. So all she was saying was, no. And I'm like, what is going on? Because she didn't speak English. We don't speak any other language. All she could say was no, and she'd say something in a different language. It was so confused. So I go up there and I'm like, lady, like, this is my suitcase. And she's like, no, screaming at this point. So then security comes over and they're like, what's going on? And the lady just looks at the security guard and goes, no. And I'm like, oh my God. My boyfriend starts talking to the security guard. He's like, this lady just came up and took my girlfriend's suitcase. Like, it's hers. He's like, okay. Then he talks to the other lady, and once again, all she's yelling is no. So he obviously is like, okay, this is not her suitcase. He gives us back my suitcase, and then they take her to like some random place in the airport. I don't know. I didn't see her after the security guard like grabbed her. I've never had an experience like that. And I'm just so happy that my eyes were open because I wouldn't have seen her grab my suitcase, and then I wouldn't have my suitcase and all of my stuff was in all of my clothes, my entire wardrobe. So yeah, don't fall asleep at the airport. Don't get to the airport too early, otherwise you're gonna be stuck there and somebody will try to steal your suitcase. But I made it to Vegas. Here's my suitcase right here.
Am I the butthole for telling my parents that I make more money than both of my siblings when they told me to get a real job? I'm a nanny to 2 special needs kids. There's a very high demand for nannies for special needs kids because 3 special needs daycares in my county shut down. So I make approximately $120,000 a year. And I live in the family's guest house rent-free, and they bought me a car so I can drive the kids around. My parents have the belief that any job in childcare is not a real job. They even went so far as to call my aunt, who majored in child development, and had her tell me how broke she is when I said I wanted to major in early childhood education. Then they told me that I could either pick an acceptable major or they wouldn't pay for my college. I cut contact with them for a while in college, and we recently started talking again. I have been in contact with my siblings, though. My parents recently asked about my job and education, and they were not happy when I said that I'm a nanny and I have my master's in special education. They made a comment that I'm working the same job that I've had since I was 15 and how I'll be broke forever. Then they told me to get a real job like my brother, who's an accountant, or my sister, who's a nurse. I was pissed and told my parents that I make more money than both my brother and sister, and I don't have to pay rent, car payments, or gas. They hung up, and I got a text from my sister saying that I made her look bad to our parents. My brother said that I should have just kept my mouth shut. Am I the butthole for telling my parents how much I make? Am I the butthole for being ungrateful of the cake that my boyfriend made me? I'm a 33-year-old woman, and I've been dating Alex, a 34-year-old guy, for almost 3 years. Alex has a 13-year-old daughter from a previous marriage that he has full custody of. When we met, Alex was doing very well. He made 6 figures, and he had a decent house in a fine neighborhood. I had a slightly lower paying job. Almost a year and a half ago, his job had to cut some employees, and he was one of them. He had to take on a job, and he's earning much less than he did before. I moved into their house 5 months ago. Ever since I moved in, I've helped a lot with bills, usually paying half or even more of them. Yesterday was my birthday. I wanted to celebrate at a nice restaurant near us. However, it was closed. There was another one a little closer to us, but it was more expensive. I suggested going there for my birthday, but Alex said that he couldn't afford to pay for dinner there, and if we went, we would have to split the bill. I was a little upset, but he said that he would make something himself. The cake I wanted was, admittedly, somewhat expensive. I pointed the cake out to him, and he said again that he didn't think that he could afford it with Christmas coming up, and we'd have to go half. I told him that I was not paying for a cake for my own birthday, and he said that he would see what he could do. Well, yesterday came. We made dinner, and it was quite good, better than most meals we eat, although not as good as what it would be at a restaurant. However, when he brought the cake out, it was just something that he made himself. He said he was sorry that he couldn't afford the nicer cake, but he had made this one and his daughter had helped. I pretended to enjoy it, but after I told him that I was hoping for a slightly nicer cake. He said that he had tried his best, and he couldn't spend the money that he had set aside for bills on a cake. I guess his daughter heard, because now he's also saying that I made her upset after she helped make it. He keeps saying that I should apologize to her and say that I really liked it. Am I the butthole?
On the way, burdens left to repay. No, we can do all of them at once. You're so good to me, let me be good to you. Step by step, we build ourselves strong. Or that you say you really keep it like that's fine. I'm not dangerous, but I can make you bleed. We met and that was fire, no. Now, I just don't want desire. Me and you forever, I'll be yours. Don't be afraid. Ooh, my lover, no drama. I'm not dangerous, but I can make you bleed. Ooh, my lover, no drama. I'm not dangerous, but I can make you.
Hi guys, thank you for watching. I love you guys so much. Please like and subscribe to see more great videos. See you again.